4 coats of Humbrol enamel. Using perhaps a 1.5 inch, 2 inch brush and cutting back the paint between each coat. You must leave the paint to dry at least 24 hours and using wet or dry paper to rub it down. Probably 240 grade and perhaps finishing off with a 400 grade. After I've applied the 4 coats of paint, I leave the wings alone for perhaps 10 days to 2 weeks. This allows the paint to harden off. I can then give it a very light rub down with a fine paper, probably 1200 grade, to take all the nibs off. You know what I mean by the nibs. We all get nibs in the paint when we use Humbrol enamel paint. So we take the nibs off with a light rubbing down paper, rub down wet, and I like to use a 3M's rubber block with the paper wrapped around. You can get a 3M's rubber block from the motor shop, motor accessory shop. After we've given it a rub down, this light rub down, we then T-cut it. I T-cut the paint right down till it's smooth but not that glossy. Once I've T-cut it down, I then use the new Magic Colour turtle wax and give it a good wax in all over, and the thing comes up like fiberglass. By having painted it, we make sure that the air brakes are free and they're working properly. We fit the Bowden cable and we fit the aileron servo and also the locating pin near the trailing edge. The white ball joint there is the connection onto the air brake servo, and the steel is obviously the main joiner. This cable here is the servo lead cable for the ailerons. Now hinges. My flaps and ailerons are hinged with using plastic tape. Gives a nice free positive hinge. I've never had one break off yet. Now the tape I use is this white plastic tape which I run inside that hinge line there, and then on the outside, on the underside, in the case of the flap, I use the diamond clear tape, and that gives me a nice positive hinge. The hinge is exactly the same for the aileron. I can't move this up and down at the moment because it's connected to the servo, and there's the servo horn, the servo in place there. The tailplane is foam cord. We fit quarter balsa, leading edge and trailing edge. The actual elevator is in balsa shaped, much the same as the wing. You can cover the tailplane in glass if you want to, but I usually cover the tailplanes on my large models in film. It's a lot lighter and helps to keep the back end light. The rudder is a foam core faced with a balsa trailing edge and a balsa leading edge. Inside the fiberglass fin is a balsa and plywood laminated stern post. The plywood helps to stiffen it all up. To drive the elevator, in this particular model I've got a full depth crank pivoted in the middle, and the pivot, the crank rotates like that to drive the elevator. We've got a long push rod, a 1/2 inch square balsa push rod, which runs right up into the nose to the elevator servo. On another model I did put a high-tech MIDI servo into the tail skid in this position here to drive the elevator. The rudder is driven with internal lightweight cables, and the little black tail skid or wheel, looks like a wheel, is in fact a piece of black flex, 3-core flex. It's just you drill 2 holes into the bottom of the tail skid and push the flex in, and it looks like a little wheel. I've deceived a few people like that. One of the important jobs on fitting the wings to the fuselage is to ensure that each wing is true to the other one and true to the fuselage. We must ensure that we've got sufficient dihedral. I hate to see models with flat wings, especially these big scale jobs. So ensure that we have sufficient dihedral. The brass tubes in the fuselage are crossed over, one behind the other, and at the correct dihedral, and then they're fiberglassed in. Once the wings are fitted onto the fuselage, I drill a hole through the hole of the joiner assembly to take an 1/8 steel pin. Now, to drill that hole, you really need a cordless electric drill that goes very, very slowly, and you cut the hole through the steel, which you'll find is very hard. You need a new drill bit. You need to cut the hole very, very slowly to get through it. Once you've done that, fit the wings back on, put the pin in, and then, if necessary, you can just fill the ends of the wing roots with a bit of car body filler available from the car body shop, and blend in the filler to match up with the wing root fairings. I'll just show you the holes in these wing root fairings. The front hole there is to take the Bowden cable for the air brake. This slot here is the main wing joiner. That slot there is to take the servo lead for the ailerons. Little hole there is the rear locator, and the square brass tube there is the torque rod that drives my flaps. In the root of each flap, I've got a slightly larger piece of brass tube, and when I slide the wings on, one piece of brass tube slides inside the other. The radio installation, well, we've got a 2000 milliamp hour battery right up in the nose. The receiver is just behind the battery there. This servo here is for the rudder. It's fixed onto the side of the fuselage with little balsa blocks with a plywood plate on the top, screwed in the normal conventional way. There's the two cables that drive the rudder. This servo here is the elevator servo. I fix a little plywood plate into the bottom of the fuselage, and I fix my servos in with electrical straps wrapped right round the servo, right round the plate. If I need to take a servo out quickly, I just cut through the strap. They're not expensive to buy. Right. The servo behind the elevator servo, this one here, is the flap servo. We've got a short ramming push rod driving the crank and the square brass tube torque rod for the flaps. And the servo up here on this little plate is for the air brakes. The Bowden cable slot through onto the servo there on ball joints. Now, to stop compression of the fuselage and a rough and tumble landing, I use a little strut with a piece of ramming, and that is just an interference fit across the fuselage, inside the fuselage at the leading edge position. I've also got a similar strut at the trailing edge position inside the fuselage. We've got a great big hole here. We must fill it up with something, make it look pretty. We put the canopy on. Now, I don't like doing canopies. It's always the last job that I do. I usually use a plywood base with a 3/16 wooden dowel locating peg up into the nose, and I put a little bit of instrumentation in and a seat. It's not my favourite job when I build a glider. I think everybody's got a little job on building gliders that they don't like doing. But we must fill that hole up, try and make the thing look a bit on the pretty side, and add to the character of it. A lot of people go to a lot of trouble with very fancy instruments and seats and straps and joysticks. That's great if you want to do it. Yeah, well, here's my canopy off the ASW20. Little seat there with a bit of tartan covering. It's a plastic base. Don't forget that you must leave enough clearance underneath the base of the canopy to allow the servos to operate correctly. And there's my instrument panel. It's very simple. It's from a bit of black and white scratch card. I use a matte black paint on the console there. It's simple. It's a little bit crude, but it's quite effective and adds to the character of the glider. Well, this is the Solus, a 2-channel model, rudder elevator, nice off the tow line or on the slope when the wind comes up a bit stronger. Foam wings, fiberglass fuselage. Going on from the Solus, the 2-channel model, this is a 3-channel model called the Domini. It's semi-aerobatic, floats on well in light weather, but will cope with the wind. It's a foam wing, fiberglass fuselage, balsa tailplane. Well, this is the smaller of the quarter scale models that I produce. It's the PIC 20. It's a 150-inch wingspan, fiberglass fuselage, foam wings, a foam tailplane. No flaps fitted on this one, only air brakes and aileron on the wings. Now this is the fuselage of another PIC-20 that a friend of mine built. He's done a very, very nice job on the canopy and the instrument panel. It's got maps and levers and joysticks. Very, very pretty indeed. And underneath you see the tow hook for the winch launching. While you've seen the large ASW20, well, this is even bigger than the ASW20. This was 17'10" wingspan. It's a clip wing ASW22. It's fitted with flaps, aileron, air brake, rudder, elevator, nose hook for aero towing, and also a hook for winch launching. One of my favourite gliders is this. It scratches well in light conditions. The CHP-18, it's based on an American design by the Bryan Aircraft Company. It's a V-tailed model, very sleek, very quick, and very pretty. An elegant V-tail model. Well, this is our winch that we use for the flat field flying. It's based on a 12-volt starter motor. There's the motor there. The drum of cable, line on line, is fixed directly onto a shaft on the motor. It's 120-pound break-in strain line, the parachute on it, a pair of wheels just to make it easier to drag across the grass, and quite a large capacity battery. We're doing 30-35 launches per day with this winch, so we get very little problem with it. Well, this is our tug. It's a President T240. Which we use for aero towing up at Ashbush Farm at Cheddar. The engine is a 35cc OS, 2-stroke. It seems to pull our big gliders up quite nicely, including the big ASW22. We've got a release and tow hook, a releasable tow hook on the centre of gravity. We don't tow, obviously we don't tow from the tail as full-size aircraft do. We have a release on the glider and on the tug. There's the back end of the tug there, racing wires from the fin and rudder, and also on the tailplane. Bloody flaps away. Pull out! Just turning from the mast now. Oh, you've got a great big pile of... Push the nose right down now, push the nose down. That's it. Keep it down. Beautiful. Down now, to the left rudder. Well, we've arrived at the bottom of Crooks Peak. We've parked up, we've rigged the glider, and it looks a grand morning. Some beautiful clouds forming. It's bright and sunny. It's quite warm. Quite a nice little breeze from the northwest, I would think. So I think we'll get on up the hill and have a go. I'll see you later. Well, here we are, nearly to the top of the peak. You see it there in the background. It's 628 feet high. Sticking out there. I don't know the origin of the name of the peak. Perhaps a highwayman was hung up there or something like that. But it's the most beautiful morning. I've seen some buzzards soaring. They're circling round. It looks a very, very promising day. I think we'll hurry up and get on up and do some flying. We're going to take the first launch of the day this morning with the ASW-20. I've asked Jim to give me a launch. I'm expecting him to keep the wings level, the nose slightly down, and quite a quick launch. I'm asking him not to let the model go until it's actually over the edge of the hill. Okay, Jim, if you're ready, we'll go. Right. Thank you. Well, that's a nice steady launch from Jim. I hope there's some lift out there. Trim back a little bit. Yeah, she's starting to climb, I think. Out over the motorway. Gentle turn there round to the right. I think we've got a little bit of a thermal there. Yes, she's climbing nicely there. Give a little bit of right rudder in. Hold the bank off with the left aileron. Oh, the thermal's a little bit further out, is it? The turn there. Well, we're staying up. We're not climbing particularly fast, but we are airborne. See if we can pick it up. I got it. I can do some loops there. Right, try roll. Here we go. Got it. No lift now. It's gone quiet. Okay, Terry.
Filming.
Well, I've got enough height there. I think I'll just try a gentle stall turn to the right. Up she goes. Right rudder. And just about a stall turn. We'll drop down out of it and run back across the ridge, left to right. Nice gentle turn there, back into the wind. The ridge lift is weak, but there's some nice thermals in it. I think if we tried, we could climb up quite high today. The air is very smooth, the wind is northerly. on a final glide in now. Give her full air brake now. And a nice safe landing. Well, we've come up onto the west face. The lift is not as strong as I thought it was going to be today. There were some good thermals early, but the cloud is now spread out and the thermals aren't developing as I expected. There's a slight breeze now coming in from the west. I'm hoping this will develop, but if it does develop, it will cut off most of the thermals. Well, as I predicted, the wind has picked up nicely from the west now. It's probably nearly 10 miles an hour. The air is smooth and we're soaring very, very pleasantly. This often happens in the summer at Crooks Peak. We get good thermals in the morning and then the wind picks up from the west, cuts off the thermals, but we do get some good ridge soaring in the afternoons. As I predicted, the wind has picked up from the west quite nicely. We don't have a terrific amount of height, but it's a good discipline, I feel, to be able to fly from the west side over onto what we call the runway. This is this flat area here overlooking Cheddar Lake. Okay. Right, I'm going to start the landing run now with the downwind leg. Now. Give her full air brake now. And a nice safe landing. Fast, I'm giving her full air brake now. I'm running in from the east, taking the air brake off, we're floating in nicely. Full air brake now. Maintaining a steady speed. We're a bit short, but a nice, safe landing with a slight ground loop. Well, I'm clearing the runway now for Alan Perry to run in with his pick. He's still soaring the west face. Got quite a lot of height. I'm going to park my model out of the way to give Alan plenty of room, and then I'm going to watch Alan come round onto a downwind leg. Well, here's Alan on the downwind leg. He's about to turn onto a base leg. Round he goes there to the left. He's lining up over the lake. He's a little bit short, I feel. I don't think he needs any flap or air brake on this one. He's cleaned it up and the model's coming forward nicely onto the runway. Maybe. A little bit jumpy there. He's coming in now, nice and steady. Nice little landing right on the wheel. The model here is the 5th scale Nimbus 4, which Jim has made up. He's made it from scratch. You can't plug for the mould, etc. Most beautiful job he's made of it. He's going to take a flight now. You ready, Jim? Yeah. I hope the wings are level, the nose is slightly down, and out over to the ridge. Back. K18 from the Cliff Charlesworth plant, this one, all built up construction. Built by John Williams. He's ready to fly. You ready, John? Yep. Well, Jim's given me a fly of his Nimbus 4. Conditions are a bit scratchy. I'm hugging the ridge, flying right to left. I'll turn around now and come back along, hoping that we can maintain or gain a bit more height, but it is scratchy at the moment. Very gentle turns, trying to keep the speed constant. We're flying this little box right on the edge of the ridge.
Okay.
And we're running right to left again. Gained a bit of height, but the conditions still aren't that good. Nice gentle pass along the ridge, it's quite safe. Well, an hour after I flew the ASW20, I've had a go with Jim's Nimbus 4. He's asked me to land it. We're on a base leg now. Turning left onto finals. I'm opening the air brakes.
Yes.
Said the wind's picked up once again from the west. It was northerly early, but it's moved round to the west. Jim's the first one away, and hopefully we'll have some good storm.
Oh, lovely.
Jim's well established in the lift now. He's climbing quite nicely, so I think we'll have another go with the ASW20. Well, for this landing, I'm turning downwind now onto this flat area we call the runway. We're on a downwind leg. Wind is 10 to 15 miles an hour. Turning base leg now. I'm coming in from the lake. Full air brake now. Nice and steady, here we come. Had another good day soaring, a bit of mixed really. We've had some ridge lift, some good thermals, but a mediocre day really I suppose. But let's go and have some tea. Bye for now. Well, there we are, that's 60 minutes with me at Teakle. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you've learned a few things. I hope I've given you a few tips on the construction and the flying of my models. Watch this space, perhaps we'll do another video later on. Thank you very much.